Hey everybody, welcome to my second attempt at live streaming ever. I kind of screwed up a little bit in the beginning and I didn't press record. So what I'm going to do is fill you in on what I was talking about before I come in on the video. And what I was talking about basically was shadow work and how you can work on yourself in different ways that you can do that. And I'm talking right now about meditation. And I come in where I'm talking about how meditation has helped me and how meditation might be able to help you. So I hope you like this. Make sure you subscribe. Check me out at morelawsmoreproblems.com. You can also check us out at comedylol.com. And I will put a screen so you can follow me on all the social medias. I'll put that up right now. You can see me on Flote. That's actually where I did this live stream, was Flote. That's FLOTE.APP. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, it's Brandon Smith 203, and Instagram, Brandon John Brandon Jon 3. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of this live stream. All right, start recording. So what I'm talking about is meditation. Thoughts come in, you let them go. Thoughts come in, you let them go. So what happens is, after a while, I noticed that so you start letting all these stupid thoughts go, but then these really good ideas come in because it's like your brain is trying to mess with you. So it's like, oh, okay, you want to meditate? Here you go. Here's a great idea. So in that same vein, though, also what can come to the surface are problems that you're having and issues that you're having. And instead of turning away from them and engaging in escapism, so say you could turn on the song and listen to music, you could smoke some cigarettes, you could smoke some weed, you could drink, you could do heroin, you could have a lot of sex, whatever your poison is, you can engage. And I'm not saying these things are inherently bad or good. We could, moderation, right? Everything in moderation, including moderation. I mean, maybe not heroin, but all right, let's see. Echo Charlie says glitchy on phone, we'll try laptop. All right, let me know how it's coming through. So if you could sit alone and deal with these thoughts, the things that are going to come to the surface. And then for me, for my own experience, I use plant medicines. So I used psilocybin mushrooms. I had an experience, and just like I said, anything, you could use it for positive or negative. And I used it and I respected it, and I had some visions and I saw some things, and it took me a while. I was doing it more in a recreational manner with a couple friends, but for me, I wanted to use it, I guess, to heal myself on some level. I just didn't realize it, but I was using it. I was taking it very seriously. So I saw some things, and that's what led to my whole awakening, I guess, and my change. And in my experience, I guess we could talk about that, because I also feel the best approach to this is an individual approach. One that you take following your intuition. There's not really a one size fits all answer. And if you can figure it out for yourself, you then become a beacon for other people to follow, because you're on the path and you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're following your dharma. So I'm going to use a lot of different terms from different, I guess, beliefs or traditions. And if anyone has any questions, I guess, just go. I'm looking at the chat right now, so I think it might be a little behind what I see, but if you put it in there, I'll catch up to you. So if you could do the shadow work like I did, so I'm going to talk about my own experience. So my own experience, I had a very severe, crippling addiction that I couldn't even see. That's the worst part, because I was engaging in behavior that you can argue is not only socially acceptable, but it makes you, it's like you're the man, because I had a very bad sex addiction. And I know a lot of people will say, hey, that's bullshit or whatever. People use that, which I agree with that. I do think people use that as an excuse if they get caught cheating. They're like, oh, I'm a sex addict, it wasn't my fault. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I was using sex in the same manner that people do use drugs. That I use it as a form of escapism, to escape reality, to get away from my problems, my low self-esteem mostly. I had to feed this, I guess you could say it was like a some kind of hunger that I had. I don't know. I don't want to like get caught up in words and trip myself up here, but I had to feed. I had this need, and it was like a hole that I had, this low self-esteem, and I was just stuffing it with all these sexual experiences I was having. So, but like on the outside, I would talk to friends, and people were like, "Oh, you're the man," and all this stuff, and I was like everyone's hero, quote unquote. I guess that just goes to show what kind of society we live in, right? Um, so I was able to overcome that, and it's just like anything else. It's it's a practice. It's stepwise. You gotta figure it out. But once I was able to see, I think in my case, like I said, because it's so socially acceptable, I didn't see it as a problem until then one day I finally did. And then I was like, oh, yeah, this is holding me back. See, because I was into a lot of this, like Ron Paul and libertarianism and all this stuff for years, and then also conspiracy minded too for years. So, probably 2000, mid 2000s, and then I was on to Ron Paul when he ran in 2008. So I could have been doing this for a long time, but I was wrapped up in other things, mainly, my sex addiction. So that was holding me back. And I feel this has been something I've been able to conquer in the past couple of years. But I feel everybody has their own thing that they have to overcome. And obviously no one's perfect. It's not like I did this and, hey, now I'm perfect. It's just it was like one of the first steps to trying to do that. So anyway, back to what I was talking about, which here, let's see if we could pull up another slide. Let's see. There we go. That's natural law. So in a nutshell, it's like karma, God's law. Let's see if we can get some other. And if you break it down to its roots, obviously natural, inherent, having a basis in nature, reality, truth, not man-made, not made or caused by humankind. Law is an existing condition which is binding and immutable, cannot be changed. So what we're talking about here are, and the other reason I wanted to show this slide was because, oops, that's the wrong one. There we go. I also was talking about this with a friend, and I made a post about this, I think, here on Float, and it is, can you be an anarchist and can you be an atheist at the same time? So, and when I say atheist, I just mean a person who believes we're just here randomly, like the total Darwin evolution. We just started as some, the primordial ooze, and then boom, we were here randomly, and it's, there's nothing at all. I'm not saying like they have to be a Christian or have to believe in any religion, but so I brought this idea up, and a couple people responded to me, and I like that. And one of them was, I don't think he's an atheist, but he was arguing that point of view where you don't have to be a Christian to believe in rights. Basically, let's say that you don't even have to say, okay, instead of making the subject an anarchist, how about, can you believe in rights and be an atheist at the same time? And I argue no, that you cannot. And my argument is because if you're an atheist and you just believe we're randomly here, technically then if you take your belief system out to its logical end, you are the center of the universe, because nothing really matters. You're just the most important person. And this is an idealism, ideology. There you go. It's an ideology called solipsism. You might be familiar with that. And it's just basically, it's similar to, if you might have heard of Satanism. It's just an ideology. It's not something where people actually worship a deity. They don't believe there's an actual Satan. I mean, some people might, but the large majority, and the people I'm talking to, it's just a religion of me, basically. Me, solipsism, Satanism. And a lot of people who fall into this mindset in this category don't even realize it. They might think they're Christians. They might just think they're agnostic. But I was somebody who fell into this mindset, and I didn't realize it either. And I was just like, you know what? It doesn't matter. My actions don't matter. I'm just going to go out. And it's not like I was going out intentionally trying to hurt people. I just wasn't aware, and didn't really care. Like I didn't care overall what happened to other people. So, and I think that is what the whole problem that is plaguing this entire society is, that it's the solipsism, and it's everybody focusing on me, me, me. And I see this even in forums like I was talking about, like in anarchist forums on Facebook and these things. And it's people really, instead of trying to solve anything, it's people arguing. And it's the same thing you see in politics and sports. It's the same division. And I argue that the reason why people are falling prey to this, because I used to do it too, it's because their psychology, they're not in the right state of mind. And this goes back to something I'm going to talk about, and I've been studying pretty intensely for about the past year and a half, probably on a level of like, a college student, maybe even higher, like a graduate student. I've just been plunging into, reading, watching documentaries and videos and on the subject of occultism and what it is, the occult. And all it is it just means hidden. It's hidden psychology. And excuse me, I'm just going to get some more tea. Like I said, I've been talking all day. It's a rough life, talking for a living. Yeah, so did I lose my train of thought? Where was I here? We're talking about solutions. We're talking about the occult. So I remember hearing about the occult when I was younger, and I was in a born again Pentecostal church, Assemblies of God, and they were just saying how it was evil and you stay away from it. That was the first I heard. I saw like a book about it, and then later, more recently, in like the past year and a half, when I ran into this again, and I started to look at it, it just means psychology. Occult means hidden. It's a word derived from Latin, from eye. It just means hidden from the eye. And it refers to psychology that I believe, and I believe there's plenty of evidence, you can go out and look, that there's a small group within our society that is able to control the larger group of, so we'll say government for this example, but it works in other, it's not just government. So this is just an ideology that's employed, I believe, by a bunch of different groups. I'm not just trying to say that there's, one evil round table called the Illuminati and they sit around. I'm willing to say there's probably a bunch of different groups that are in power that know this, similar to the way the mafia operates. I think that's kind of how governments operate. And, but I think it's also how religions operate too. And I think people who are ensconced in high levels of either religion or government or the mafia or whatever it is, they get a lot of their training from the same people because they have the same ideology that goes back to solipsism and Satanism I was talking about. And I feel that they don't worship, it's not like a religion to them the way religions are to us, where they pray to God and stuff. It's more of a belief system. And it's more of a way that they can align their thoughts and their emotions to create action in the world. And that's another occult concept. And that's the concept that they kind of took, that religion took with the Trinity, I'll say the Christian religion. And we could talk about that a little more. But back to what the occult means. So really what it is, I found it's just a set. It's like a decoder set. If you can figure this out, it's like I remember learning when I was younger about the way they would send codes, and they would have a book, like say they would have Moby Dick, and they would have this cutout, and they would cut the words. It was a sheet where they needed, and it would like say, send me snacks or whatever, send us supplies, and the red coats are coming. So anyway, they would put it over, and then they would send it to that other person, and they would have it to decode it. It's the same thing, right? This is exactly what this is. The occult is just a way to decode certain symbolism, psychology, language, and it's a way, once you can start to figure it out, you just shift your perspective, and then you really start to see it everywhere. Now, when I make a statement like that, people could be like, well, you're crazy. You're saying it's everywhere. Now, the reason I'm saying you could see it everywhere is because this has to do with the subconscious human mind. And I believe a lot of people who create, people who make movies, music, architecture, they're influenced a lot by their subconscious, right? Obviously. So I think that in that way it comes out and they create, so they're subconsciously, they might be encoding these messages and they don't even realize it. It's just this subconscious thing that's working. So if you are a person who's able to decode, then you could see this. So that is one way that it works great. The other way is that I believe the society we're raised in. I mean, okay, so as somebody who's an anarchist and a libertarian, we're against public schooling because we know it's like indoctrination. We're against government interference in everything because we realize how the media, it's indoctrination, right? All this stuff is indoctrination. So if we realize that the schooling, they even control the pharmaceuticals. I mean, think about, okay, so we're really worried about war, right? That's the number one thing as a libertarian. And think about how much the war lobby spends. Well, you should do some research into how much pharma spends in pharmaceuticals because they spend a shitload, probably more than that. It's crazy. So we need to look at why they're spending that money and what they could be doing, and can there be a psychological element? And I argue yes. You just have to look at the schooling. It's indoctrination. And I argue the way we're raised is more of a way that you would raise a slave. It's hard to hear these things for people because we're so attached to our worldview, and we're attached to, a lot of libertarians especially, well, it's terrible that we live here, but at least, we have government, but at least it's the freest place, and we kind of accept it, where I'm saying that if you could just go a little farther and see the truth, the reality of this, and I'm talking about things such as like even circumcision. I remember reading and coming across, finding that circumcision is something that is done. It was started as a practice to like do to slaves because you can control them psychologically because you're subjecting them. Like one of their first memories is just this terrible trauma, and you're instilling this trauma-based mind control into this child, So it's like, wow, when you come across that, you're like, well, maybe it is a little worse than we thought. And I'm not here, obviously, for doom and gloom. We're here for solutions. That's the thing. But it's more about waking up. And as people who are libertarians, and as people who are, watching this, I don't know, maybe you guys are into crypto, or at least, and maybe some anarchy, whatever, at least conservative, right? As people, you could see that, man, did I just lose my whole train of thought? Yeah, that's crazy. Oh yeah, you could see how just that control, I guess my overall point was that control is just a bad thing. Like, you have to see the truth. Oh, that's what I was saying. Okay. So as somebody who's a libertarian or anarchist or whatever, you've already come so far in the truth. And if you just keep going a little bit, I'm telling you, it's so worth it. If you could really open your eyes to see what's going on, and maybe people who are watching know what's going on, but that's okay because I'm just reinforcing this, and, we got to get this message out here. That's what I'm saying. So what else could we talk about with the occult? I guess I could talk about how I got into it, and it was really through symbols, because I was looking into how governments and corporations influence people, and I just kept coming across these symbols, and it was all these different symbols, and you could look it up, like look oil stuff. Maybe I can look up some symbolism while I'm here. Let's do that on the old Brave browser, because it's really crazy, especially oil companies, because it's like every one of them has a drop of blood. And it gets really nefarious when you start to think of like what they're actually meaning with this drop of blood. All right, let's see what I can find here on the old start page. What do you guys use for apps? I'm sorry for searching. Oh yeah, good. I found some good stuff here. Let's see here. Let me do this so you guys can search along with me, so you're not just looking at my face. There we go. Look at this. See? There's a guy, his name is Michael Tessarion, if you're not familiar with him. And he does a lot of this different symbolism and breaking down stuff. Exxon uses religious symbols and sigils. You know, let me put in drop of blood, see if that comes up. I'm so glad you guys are joining me. This is crazy. I mean, I guess we're all just, you know, lonely on a Tuesday night, but that's cool. My friend asked me to come play poker, and I'm like, I can't play tonight. Oh, this is some Rothschild stuff. What's going on? Let's see. Let me just do this. Let's see how good I am. I used to be so good at searching. I didn't even want to say the G word, Google. Ugh, so gross, right? This just says BitChute. I guess we could just kind of take a look at this, and I could break down some of the symbols here. Let's see if we look back here. Yeah, that's, maybe we can make this a little bigger. I used to be so good at the internet, guys. I don't know what happened. I got old. We'll do it live. F it. There we go. Okay. So, if you look at, it's funny, if you just kind of look at these symbols, it starts to, you'll start to see like a lot of different patterns. Like there's a lot of A's, a lot of different, and the A really is a triangle. And that's a really powerful symbol because the triangle goes back to the pyramid, and you could just start to break it down in so many ways, like pyramid. So pyramid comes, you break it down, pyramid. Pyr is from pyro, like fire, and then mid is middle. So it really means the fire within. And pyramids symbolize inner knowledge and self-knowledge and how important that is. And if you think of every time you see pyramids, a lot of times there's 3 pyramids, right? And what that's supposed to represent is anytime you see 3, so that's also represented in doorways a lot of times in a church. Now, I'm telling you, like, you start to see this stuff and it's crazy because it's everywhere. And like I said, I'm not saying it's some conscious conspiracy. It's probably subconscious a lot of times, but in churches and a lot of office buildings, you'll see, or a lot of this old structure, you'll see 3 doors, like, and the middle one is usually the largest. And then you'll also see 3 pillars a lot, or 2 pillars and 1 door in the middle, or two windows and a door in the middle. And what this represents is that there's a right-hand path and a left-hand path and a middle way. And it's like, really what it represents though is the masculine side of the brain and the feminine side of the brain, like left brain, right brain, and using them together in conjunction to create. And when you do that, you're going on the center path. And this is a lot of religious symbolism. You'll see this everywhere. And you see this like on the Pope's staff. I did a video about this. On the Pope's staff here, let's do this because this is very interesting. This is kind of mind-blowing. Does anyone know what's on the Pope's staff? The symbol? I do. Come on, here we go. It's, yikes. That's not what I was looking for. Hang on. Oh, maybe it's not his staff? Hang on. Okay, it's only my second time live streaming, guys. It's my, okay, so, oh yeah, all right, so if you look here, that's what it was. This isn't a large enough picture. Come on, guys. All right, here's one. See how it's a pine cone right here? All right, so there's a pine cone there, and then you can also do this. I don't know if I'm spelling this right. It'll correct it for me. Oh, that's right. There we go. Boom. The Fontella della Pignai. There we go. So there's a giant pine cone. This is located in the center of the Vatican. In one of the courtyards, there's a giant pine cone, and then you see the 2 peacocks here on either side, which is similar. Like I said, there's always 3. It's also referred to as the triptych. You can look that up. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. So what this pine cone symbolizes is the pineal gland. All right, how crazy is that? And the way the pineal gland is activated is you have to get your right brain and left brain to work together in conjunction, and then you could use the higher mind. And this really all comes back to what I was talking about with mind control, because if you think we're raised, like I said, we're kind of raised like slaves, but what happens is the general public is kept in a state of fear, right? We're kept in this lower fight or flight mode. It's like I'm gonna bring it back to me. Yeah, bring it back to me. We're kept in this lower limbic, like reptilian animal brain, I guess you could say. It's in the lower part, the Abdullah, whatever. That's all. I'm no scientist here, guys. I'm just a ex jarhead who does a lot of research on the internet. So what I find is people are kept in this, so it's like a fight or flight mode, and it's not like there's like a constant giant danger. It's like a slow, like behind the scenes, always danger lurking behind every corner. So people are always kept in this constant state of fear, and this is why they get stuck in a loop, like a pattern of behavior. And then this is also where addiction comes in, because when you get in this loop, a lot of times you have some kind of substance or other kind of behavior that you can engage in. Like for myself, like I said, I'm a sex addict, or I guess I was, or whatever. So I was using this behavior, and so you get stuck in this loop. But if you could start to get away from that and quiet your mind and raise your awareness, you could start to align. And so instead of your thoughts and emotions being at odds with each other, and that's what was going on with me, they were clashing, I'm starting to use them together and guide them to create in the world. And this is what we are not taught in government, school, or even private schools, right? But guess what? This is what they are taught at elite boarding schools. They're taught the trivium method. If you're not familiar with the trivium method, maybe we could talk about that also. The trivium method is an ancient method of learning where it's really a method of truth discovery, where you put your grammar first, so you get your facts, and then you study them, so you apply your logic, and then you have your rhetoric, which is your output. So the problem is it's reversed. We're taught to see things with our eyes on, right? So we're taught a certain way to look at things when I get very excited, guys, and all these ideas just try to pour out of my head. You should see when I try to write, it's brutal. I'm like, so that's why I podcast a lot when I go to try to write. But anyway, so what happens is in our society, we're taught to use our filter. So when we use the filter first, we have our logic in place first, we have our mindset, we already know, we have our dogma, and then we encounter facts and we filter them through our dogma, and then we put the output, right? But with the true method of truth discovery is to not do it that way, is to look at the facts first, what they are, and then see how they fit together, and then output and explain that to the world. So, but like I said, we're not being taught that. It's crazy. Let's see. All right. So they are taught that, though. And that's what I'm saying. So when you're taught to align these parts of your brain, you can activate the pineal gland, and then you could supposedly you're supposed to attain Christ consciousness. There's so many rabbit holes you can go down, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to go down these rabbit holes. It's just about getting to know yourself, and then you could create correct or right action in the world and live your life according to natural law. And this goes back to what I said about being an atheist. So as long as you believe that your actions matter in the world, and that there are consequences for your actions because of natural law, that's all that you need to know. And then you could believe in rights, because you could believe that there is some sort of creator, whatever that is. It could be the programmer who's programming our reality. If you believe in simulation theory, if you believe in God and Jesus, it could be God. If you believe in it could be that, whatever it is. And that's what they were trying to say, I guess, in the Constitution, which was still too far for me, obviously. All right. Excuse me. Let's see if we have any comments here. If I'm just blabbing away to nobody or nothing. Let's see. Don't sweat it. We all get better with time. Thanks, man. Don't miss poker nights with the guys, especially yeah. Well, I still get to play a fair amount enough, so I'm not too worried about it. It is a fun night, but I really wanted to. I mean, listen, this is like I always argue about anxiety, and I talk about this on my tarot podcast. What anxiety really is. A lot of anxiety is your inner self. It's your subconscious, and it's screaming at you, right? So if you're going to your 9 to 5 job, like for example, I used to sell cars. Like I was in the Marine Corps, and that was yeah. And then I sold cars for years when it was like really good, and I was making a lot of money and all this stuff. But I just had this anxiety, and it was my true self um, screaming at me, saying you're not on your path, you're not living the life. So it starts to come out in negative ways. Whoa! There goes my lights, and there goes the neighbors. The neighbors' dogs are going crazy. All right, so yeah, so that's just a little bit on anxiety. So now that I'm doing this is what I feel like I felt like I've been called to work on Float and to speak truth to people on Float. It's my calling. No, but you guys know what I mean. Geometric proofs are a great way to learn how to apply premises to reasoning. Yeah, very true. Have you noticed how YouTube is dropping support of browsers? I have not noticed that. Which ones? I use Brave. What does everyone use? Let's see. If I could type. I use Brave. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't actually even really. I think I live stream on YouTube once or twice a while ago, and I don't know. I have, obviously, I'm probably gonna start to try to figure out how I can do both, and then broadcast on there because I know I have friends of mine that'll listen, but like, it's probably gonna be way over their heads, which I don't care. That's fine. That's great. Let's see what. I mean, I have a lot of this is the terrible thing. Like I have a lot of Facebook friends because I'm also a DJ, so I've been doing that for like 12 years, and you start to promote yourself a lot. So I have a lot of Facebook friends or whatever, and I used to get some I used to get people to kind of react to my articles and stuff, but these days I don't know. I put up a thing about my latest podcast, and I got one like after like 3 days. I'm like, I have like 2,000 friends. What is going on? So I don't know if it's shadow banned, but people say that, but I also think it's people just don't care. They do, but they're engaging in this form of escapism, like I'm talking about, which I get it, man. We're at the point, we're like I love to use religion as, to use the allegory of religion or just religious stories as a metaphor of what's going on. Like if you think of what was going on in Babylon, like how is this not the great Babylon? I mean, you could on your phone with your cell phone, you could order whatever you want to your house. Like whatever, right? How insane is that? You don't have to worry about being cold or too hot or being too hungry. You can have anything you want, any drug, So we live in a time, and I'm not saying just because it's that it's inherently evil, but we live in a time with so many distractions and so many ways to engage in escapism, uh, so many ways to just gratify your senses. A lot of people think, and for a while, I thought life was just about sense gratification. How many notches can I get in the bedpost? How many good times can I have? That's what I really thought it was about. And I don't want to judge anybody, because if that's what somebody thinks it's about, then that's their reality. They have that right. That's their right, as long as they're not infringing on anyone else's rights. All right, guys, I'm getting some more tea. That's what we're arguing here. It's all about rights. So I feel that's why I wanted to talk about things like this, and then just things such as basic human rights. Man, I can't even type. Chromium-based Brave, but also Safari. All right. Because I think that even, even Bernie supporters, as insane as they are, some of them you might be able to reach just with the simple fact that, hey, don't we at least get our rights? And then maybe if we could start to explain what rights are. And if you're not familiar with what rights are just any action that you want to take that doesn't infringe upon the rights of others. And that's why it's funny, because if you go back and look at the Constitutional Congress that was going on, or the Constitutional Convention, I'm sorry, that's what I wanted to say, that was going on when they were drafting the Constitution, a lot of the framers didn't want to include the Bill of Rights. And when you hear that, you're like, what, were they evil? But no, their mindset was, listen, if we write down this set of rules or whatever, people later might infer that the government actually has the power to decree this, that they might infer that they wrote it down because that's in the government's purview, where some people are like, don't even write anything down. But I'm kind of glad they did, obviously, because the way we use it now. So at least for us, we still have a chance. We still have our guns, maybe arguably because of it. But, going back again, you can't blame Trump. You can't blame Obama. You can't blame anybody else but yourself. We have to realize that the reason we live in this reality and the way the reality is because of our actions. We are conforming with the system. We are paying our taxes. We are sending our kids to school. We are getting, we're going to the doctor and getting vaccinations and not asking questions. And I don't want to start that whole thing, but man, if you haven't seen that video where all the WHO vaccine experts, they just did this thing in December where they kind of had to admit that the testing isn't really at the level where they say it is, and how, I don't know, it's great. Look it up. I think I shared it. It's on Del Bigtree. It's on one of his latest things. But it goes back to what I've always said, where it's not one answer or the other. It's not vaccines are the answer, and it's not that they're all terrible. I mean, they probably are, but it's funny though, the WHO also had to admit that that society is now basically dependent on vaccines because of their use of them. So now that we're dependent on them, we might as well just keep taking them. That's like they say this, their words, not mine. I'm telling you, it's great. You got to check it out. But it's funny because I also do comedy, and I'm working on this joke where I tell people, hey guys, I'm going to prove to you guys that mind control is real. And I'm not going to, I don't mean like mind control, like coming out of a tower, like beaming into your brain. I mean like psychology, where, you could be fooled. Massive people could be fooled into having a certain reaction. This is way too many words for a joke, obviously, so I have to cut it down. But the gist of it is, I'm going to prove to you guys that mind control is real. Watch, here we go. And then I'm going to say, I don't vaccinate my children. I've actually done this joke at open mics. And then everyone's like, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you feel that? Oh, yeah. I go, everyone's having the same reaction. Yeah, right. And then I'm like, guys, I'm just kidding. I don't have any kids. They're dead because I didn't vaccinate them. So that's just my way of trying to open up people's mind to this, because if anybody else just says the word vaccine, it's like anti-vaxxer and they want to just shoot you. Where I'm like, listen, it's just because it's the government, man. You know what I mean? Why would you think that they have your best intentions in mind at all? I don't know. That's just why I have skepticism. And then from there, I'll do my own research. And my own research has led me to believe that you should look into it for yourself. And that's what we'll say about that. But anyway, getting back to, I guess we could start talking about more about the occult and psychology and solutions. And I really feel that if we could just start waking people up to the ideas involved in this occult hidden psychology, this knowledge of how to live like a person is supposed to live and not like a slave, I think that people will just start to figure it out on their own. And that's really what we need to do. We don't need to elect a candidate. We don't need to get behind a religious figure. We don't need to find, you guys don't need to get behind me. That's not what I'm saying. What we need to do is to just spread these ideas. And like I said, when people start to wake up for it, you could see really how ridiculous it is. And it's funny because I talked before about circumcision and how I came across the fact that that it was used for people to like indoctrinate slaves. That's like how people kept slaves, and that's one of the methods they used. Was they used I can't even. Oh, yeah, they use circumcision. Sorry, guys. I guess what time is it? My brain just starting to unravel. So they use circumcision, and it's a form of trauma-based mind control because they just they subject this poor child, such as myself, to such crazy trauma at a young age. So, what was I talking? Where my brain is just, I might have to. Whew, I'm losing it. Okay, yeah. So anyway, people are subjected to this form of trauma-based mind control, right? Is from a very young age, and there's other aspects that play into it, and there's other things that happen to females and people, that we just don't realize that we're so used to. But if we start to wake up to these ideas, we can see, really how crazy it is and how insane it is. And that's where I feel that that's where the solution is. So that's why obviously I'm focusing my time on this, and I'm just trying to get more people to see this and more people to see how that and it's on both sides, because it's atheists and it's people that are in religion too that I also would like to talk to about this, because this is like one of the hardest things, obviously, in the anarchist community and the libertarian community, is to talk about religion. It's the other third rail, right? Especially if people are Christians. And I grew up in a Catholic, I was an altar boy. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten till ninth grade. Then I went to public school. I also, in there somewhere, I was in a born again Christian Assembly of God. I read the Bible. I don't know if I've read the whole Bible, but I've read a lot of the Bible, maybe the whole Bible, because it was like the thing we were going to go to hell if we didn't do it when I was in the Pentecostal thing. And I was always fascinated by it. And I talked about this in my last podcast, and I want to say this all because I also want to say that every day I try to live my life based on the model of Christ, based on the Christ Jesus model, the way he lived his life. It's that path that he walked. It's the golden rule, which I like to look at apophatically, which is just from reverse. So I like to say, do not do unto others what you do not want done to you. So this way it's a lot more specific. I don't want this done to me. Don't do it to me. I won't do it to you. We're all cool. And really what that comes down to is the non-aggression principle. So you guys will understand this. A lot of, libertarians and stuff, they understand the non-aggression principle. That is the sacred feminine aspect of this. The sacred masculine aspect of that is the self-defense principle. And the self-defense principle is nothing more than the positive use of force. Force is just something that can be used positively or negatively. The negative use of force is violence. So that's why we have the non-aggression principle. We will not, we say we're not going to cause violence on people, but we also say if you choose to bring violence to us, we will use self-defense. The positive use of force, we'll use it to push against you. So this is very important to understand both of these. And this is why I also like to talk, so that's why I model my life, because I feel like there's plenty of evidence that you can find in the Bible where Jesus employed both of these methods, and he talked about loving your enemy and turning the other cheek. But I really think that was in service to other ideas. He also pulled out the switch with the money changers in the temple, and when he was pretty pissed off at those guys. So he wasn't afraid to kick them out. Am I still? Oh, it looked like I was lagging there for a minute. Okay. So what I like to say to Christians is that are anarchists or that are libertarians is that you should really, like I have, you should look into this. Look into the history of the Christian religion. Look into the history of the Romans. And they're the ones who really put together the Christian religion. And it was superimposed on top of, you hear that it was like there's pagan holidays involved and they put it together to make it work for the people. That's the story you get on the surface. That's like the exoteric story. That's what they tell you. But what they really did was they took the paganism of the time, which was nothing more than just, like tarot, astrology, and it was really looking at the stars, and they just kind of put the ideas of Christianity on top of them. So they took out different aspects and different characters, and they put in Jesus, they put in Mary, they put in Joseph, they put in John the Baptist, and I'm not saying like what in the Jesus story, I'm not saying that happened or didn't happen, but what I'm saying is they aligned their calendar with it and their dates, and they made a system of control that was adapting to their new empire, because they were coming out of one age and into the other. And this is what the occult is all about. When you have people who are, small group of elites, whoever they are, who are in control of a larger group, this is things that they discuss. These are things that they talk about. They realize that things go in cycles, that you have to be out ahead of this or you're going to end up with your head on a pike, right? They realize this, that kings get killed when their subjects aren't happy, and they have to keep the mass of body of people at least a little bit happy to a certain point, so they don't go crazy. So this is what they did. So I'm not trying to say that Jesus wasn't a historical person. You can look into it. There's actually people who did a lot of great work. This one guy's name is Ralph Ellis. I highly suggest looking into his work. And so if you take it back before what the Romans did, it was this peaceful cult, I guess you could say. It was a cult of the Christ, and it had more to do with the message of Jesus, what he said, the golden rule. Like, it had more to do with that, and it had more to do with there's even evidence that it had a lot to do with astrology, like I said, stuff with the stars. And all that really was people, they're just divination tools, similar to the tarot, similar to, like I said, astrology, to Kabbalah. These are just divination tools that a person can use to hone that intuition. So, like when I said I talk about tarot, when I look at a tarot card, I'm not trying to summon a god or like look for the future. What I'm doing is I'm using this as a mirror, and I'm using these symbols, and I'm trying to say, what can this be saying to me? So I'm not looking to the outside. I'm not looking for, I'm not asking my mom. I'm not asking my friends that I work with for advice. I'm looking to myself. And I'm not saying those things aren't bad to do, but you shouldn't only be looking to the outside. You should be looking to the inside. And I can use that card to kind of say, oh yeah, maybe this is what it's saying. And oh yeah, this guy's this. And I can use it as a mirror, as a metaphor. And that's similar to astrology and like I said, Kabbalah. So what happened was they demonized all these tools of divination because they didn't want a large group of people to get their minds made up internally. They wanted that group of people to look externally. They wanted people to look to them for the answers. They wanted them to have the one and only answer. So, am I still live here? What's going on? Looks like I'm still live, so I'm going to keep talking, or maybe not. Let's check the old stream. It says I'm still live. All right, so I guess I'll just keep talking. I'll just refresh on my end, see what happens. So it's just another system of control. So if you're in a mainstream religion, such as Christianity or whatever, you have to come to grips with the fact. You have to come to grips with the fact that your religion was created by a government. So if you're an anarchist who is a Christian, you have this belief system that was put in place by a Roman emperor. And he was the one who decided. They had a council, and they said, all right, we're going to take these books and they can go in. And I'm look, that's what I'm saying, look into this stuff, because there was ideas such as reincarnation, that were like, nope, this doesn't make it, because, if people think there's reincarnation, then they're not going to listen to us. They're not going to worry about that. Nope, we're going to cut that out. So if you could look at the message, I think, of what was missing, it was more like, you think of like mysticism or like Hermeticism or stuff that Freemasonry, what they would learn. And it's just really these whole it's this whole idea of how to live, and it really comes back to the occult. All right, I'm just looking at this looking at the chat here. So anyway, and that so that's really what I'm trying to say here is that I'm not trying to crap on anyone's religion. I'm just trying to open your eyes, because my eyes similarly had to be open. And I'm not saying I'm an atheist. I still believe that there's a creator. I still have my own beliefs, but they're my own beliefs, and I came to them after 43 and a half years of being on this earth, of looking into everything I could look at. I've looked into Buddhism, I've looked into Hinduism, just to kind of check it out. I've even looked into like the Muslim religion, just to try to understand what's going on. And like I said, at the end of the day, there's always this system of control that I was never down with. I really like Buddhism, and I got into meditation, but at the point where they're like, well, you got to meditate all day, and and you don't have to worry. And I'm like, that just can't be right. So I feel that I just took what instinctually felt right for me. And I feel like if you look at the Bible through, okay, cool. There was a hiccup, but it came back. I feel like if you look at the Bible through the eyes of somebody with this occult knowledge, you could start to see, especially when Jesus talks in the words that he was saying, that if you could start to model your life like that, that's really what's important. And that's kind of the message that's at the center of Buddhism also. It's more about walking the path. It's not about praising Buddha or anything like that, or praising any one person. And that's how we feel. That's how anarchists and libertarians, that's how we feel our government should be. Well, this is more about the inner government. The governments that we see in the world, like the United States government, that's external government. We have to also get an internal look at control and how we're going to do that. And we need a system of internal monarchy. We need to have control. We need to have a strict control. We need to employ our will. That's another method. Employ your will to align your thoughts and your emotions to create action. And it's, these are just words that I can say. And it's, like I said, actions are really what we want to do. It's all about actions. Yeah. So what else are we talking about here? You might distill down your principles and then list the supporters for them philosophically. Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let's go back to, let's see, what was I doing before? We were looking at symbolism, right? Okay, so we're looking at the pine cone. What's some other symbolism we can look at here? And like I said, so this, all right, we'll just go back to the pine cone, because there we go. Nope. Yep. So the pine cone here, this is in the Vatican. So this is just letting you know. I mean, so if you're a Catholic like I was, they know this. I was showing it. It was on the Pope's staff before. There's a pine cone. So they realize they're taught the esoteric. That's what I was talking about in my last video. And I broke that down. You can go to my website, morelawsmoreproblems.com. And my latest blog post, I talk about esoteric and exoteric and the difference. So I guess I'll break that down briefly, really, what that is. Esoteric is, we'll start with exoteric. Exoteric is what you would learn like in a outward religion. So the Catholic religion, that's applied that way. You can also look at it government. Exoteric is like the government that we have to, we have to pay our taxes, we have to vote. That's exoteric. Esoteric is for the inner circle. So I argue that within the Catholic Church they have their own hierarchy where some initiated people in the inner circle, they don't live the life that they're telling you to live. They have billions of dollars in a bank. I mean, if anybody's going to say that they're living for Jesus but have billions of dollars in a bank, I mean, we can make arguments all day, but come on. So like I said, again, I'm not attacking religion. I'm just bringing up facts here. This is stuff that I had to accept and go through, and I'm just trying to spread it with you guys. So take it for what it's worth. So I argue that there's people on the inside that know this knowledge, so they're aligning their thoughts and emotions to create action in the world, to create the right action. But I'm not arguing that it's correct for us. It's not in accordance with natural law. That's the problem. It's against natural law. So they're aware of it. In government, it's the same way. Think about it, government or anybody that that's deeply involved in government, or the police. They have a whole different set of rules for themselves. The police have a different set of rules. They drive around as fast as they want. I mean, they do whatever they want, basically. I'm fortunate enough to live in a spot where the cops are actually kind of cool, but I see what goes on, and it hasn't always been that way in my town. I mean, I grew up because my brother used to sell weed, being like harassed. I went away to the Marines and I came back, and they like raided my parents' house because my brother was selling weed, and they used to harass him nonstop. They left me alone because I was a jarhead, but other than that, so there's a different set of rules. So that's esoteric and exoteric. That's really what it comes down to. And the esoteric has to do with the occult. That's the hidden, that's the inner circle knowledge. And that's what they are privy to. And their symbolism gives them away wherever you go, which is great. All right, let's see if we can figure out some more kind of symbolism here. I think I might be... I mean, I could talk for hours, but I don't know if... I think I might be coming to the end of this live stream, but I really had a good time, and I'm hoping that people enjoy this live stream too. I have to work. Let's see. I have to work for the next couple nights, but I'm going to try to get back on as soon as I can. And I'm also going to try to get these videos uploaded if anybody knows a way that I can, because I tried to upload a video earlier and it wasn't letting me upload. It was about 2 gigs. I can make it smaller. I mean, I could just make it less resolution. We could do that. So, all right, guys. Thanks for listening. And remember, you can check me out at morelawsmoreproblems.com, where we always say the more laws, there's more problems. It's very self-explanatory, but no, check out my blog. I've been writing on there on and off since 2013. I've just started putting my podcasts on there. I also do a podcast about the tarot, which you can find at tarotbull.com, tarotbull.com. And what else do I do? I do memes there too. So check that stuff out, and let me know what you think. All right, guys. Later.